Did you know that a pope once put a corpse on trial? Well, buckle up, because we're diving into one of the most bizarre tales in papal history, the reign of Pope Stephen VI. In the late 9th century, Stephen VI ascended to the papacy, a period rife with political intrigue, power struggles, and, as we'll see, some truly strange behavior. Stephen's reign, which spanned from 896 to 897, was marked by one event so peculiar that it's hard to believe it's true. Stephen VI exhumed the corpse of his predecessor, Pope Formosus, for what came to be known as the Cadaver Synod. But why would Stephen go to such macabre lengths? The answer lies in the political climate of the time. Formosus, during his papacy, had made some powerful enemies, and Stephen VI was among them. The Cadaver Synod was no ordinary trial. The deceased Formosus was dressed in papal vestments and propped up on a throne. His accuser, none other than Stephen VI himself, hurled charges against the corpse, accusing him of perjury and violating canon law. The court, likely fearing the wrath of Stephen VI, found the lifeless Pope Formosus guilty. The punishment was severe. The corpse was stripped of its papal vestments, the 3 fingers it used for blessings were cut off, and the body was desecrated before being thrown into the Tiber River. But the story doesn't end there. The spectacle of the Cadaver Synod was widely reviled. Stephen VI's attempt to consolidate power and disgrace his predecessor instead led to his downfall. The Roman populace, horrified by the disrespect shown to the deceased pope, rebelled. Stephen VI was soon deposed and imprisoned. The final act of this macabre drama was Stephen's death, strangled in his cell under murky circumstances. Stephen VI's bizarre act was not well received, and he was soon deposed and strangled to death. The papal scandal of Stephen VI serves as a stark reminder of the lengths to which power struggles can lead, even within the sanctified halls of the Vatican. Imagine a pope who turned the sacred Vatican into a brothel. A shocking thought, isn't it? Yet history reveals a time when such a scandalous figure held the highest position in the Catholic Church. This man was none other than Pope John XIV, who reigned from 955 to 964. John XIV, originally named Octavian, was the grandson of Marozia, a woman who wielded significant political power in Rome during the 10th century. Octavian was merely a teenager when he was elected as Pope, taking the name John XIV. His youth, however, didn't bring a fresh moral perspective to the papacy. Instead, it was marked by a reign of debauchery and scandal that would shock the church to its core. Accusations against John XIV were numerous and grave. He was said to have turned the Lateran Palace, the official papal residence, into a brothel. The sacred halls of this ancient building echoed with the sounds of feasting, gambling, and illicit activities. His immoral lifestyle didn't end there. Shockingly, he was also accused of incest and adultery. These allegations weren't mere rumors. They were recorded by contemporaries, including the chronicler Lutprand of Cremona, who detailed John V's misdeeds in his writings. Despite the mounting evidence against him, John V remained in power, his actions casting a dark shadow over the papacy. The end of his reign was as sensational as his life. John IV died under mysterious circumstances at the young age of 27. Some say he was struck down by a sudden stroke. Others whisper of a more dramatic end. One popular story suggests he was murdered by a jealous husband, whose wife had been seduced by the immoral pope. The church was left in a state of shock and scandal after John V's term. His reign served as a grim reminder of the human flaws that can permeate even the highest levels of religious leadership. It was a chapter in papal history that the Church would prefer to forget, but one that cannot be ignored. Have you heard of the Pope who preferred war over peace? This might sound like a setup for a punchline, but alas, it's a true story. Our focus now shifts to the early 16th century, to the reign of Pope Julius II. From 1503 to 1513, Julius II, born Giuliano della Rovere, held the papal throne. His 10-year reign was marked by an unorthodox approach to papal duties. He was known as the warrior pope, and for good reason. While his predecessors sought peace and spiritual enlightenment, Julius sought territorial expansion through military might. His gaze fell upon Italy, a patchwork quilt of city-states and duchies ripe for consolidation under the banner of the church. Using his papal authority, he rallied armies, formed alliances, and masterminded military campaigns. The Italian wars were his playground. His objective? to extend the church's territories and solidify its temporal power. But this was not a game, and Julius's warmongering had dire consequences. The church's reputation, once a beacon of peace, compassion, and spiritual leadership, was sullied. It was a house divided, its spiritual mission at odds with its temporal ambitions. Julius II, the Pope, the supposed shepherd of Christ's flock on earth, was leading his sheep not to green pastures, but to the battlefield. This was a stark departure from the traditional role of the Pope. The papacy was supposed to be a symbol of unity, a beacon of hope, and a bastion of peace. Under Julius II, it was anything but. The church's focus shifted from saving souls to acquiring lands, from preaching love to waging war. The papal throne was no longer a seat of spiritual authority, but a war room. Julius II left a legacy of conflict that the church had to grapple with for years. And grapple it did, struggling to reconcile its spiritual mission with the temporal ambitions of its warrior pope. It was a dark chapter in the history of the papacy, a stark reminder of how power can corrupt even the most sacred of institutions. Picture a pope who fathered several children and was fond of lavish parties. Enter Pope Alexander VI, a man whose reign from 1492 to 1503 was peppered with scandal, corruption, and a taste for the decadent. Alexander VI, born Rodrigo Borgia, was no stranger to controversy. His reputation for nepotism was as legendary as his love for luxury. This pope was not shy about promoting his own family members to positions of power within the church. It's said that he bought his way into the papacy, using the vast Borgia wealth to secure votes. But it wasn't just his corrupt practices that shook the church to its core. Alexander VI, unlike his predecessors, openly acknowledged his children. He had several offspring, most notably Cesare and Lucrezia Borgia, who themselves would become infamous figures in history. This was a pope who didn't just bend the rules of celibacy, he shattered them, throwing the church into an uproar. Yet, for all his indiscretions, Alexander VI was a shrewd politician. He was a master manipulator, using his position to further his own interests and those of his family. He played a crucial role in the politics of his time, even going so far as to divide the New World between Spain and Portugal. His fondness for lavish parties and sumptuous feasts was well known. He was a man who indulged in the pleasures of the flesh, living a life more befitting a king than a spiritual leader. His palatial residence in Rome was a testament to his love for opulence, filled with art and treasures from around the world. But beneath the glitz and glamour, there were darker rumors. Stories of poison and intrigue swirled around Alexander VI, casting a shadow over his papacy. As his reign drew to a close, many questioned the moral integrity of the church under such a leader. Alexander VI's reign was one of the darkest periods in papal history. His legacy serves as a stark reminder of a time when the highest office in the church was tainted with corruption and scandal. So as we've seen, not all popes have been saintly figures. Pope Stephen VI, in his theatrics, posthumously put his predecessor on trial, leading to a scandal that rocked the church to its core. Then we had Pope John XIV, a man infamous for his immoral lifestyle and flagrant disregard for his holy duties. Next in line was the warrior Pope Julius II. He swapped his papal robes for armor, leading armies into battle, a far cry from the peaceful teachings of the church. And let's not forget Pope Alexander VI, whose nepotism and licentiousness were legendary, leading to widespread corruption within the church. These popes, through their misdeeds, left indelible marks on the papacy, challenging its integrity and credibility. Yet, in spite of these transgressions, the church remained resilient, weathering the storm of scandal and controversy. Despite these dark moments, the church has survived and continues to be a major global institution. But these stories serve as a reminder that even the highest religious authority is not immune to human failings.